Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Unfiltered Vet Discussions. My name is Kelly, and we're being joined by Phil, David, and Jenny today. You can read our bios and see our faces if you're not watching us on YouTube at unfilteredvetdiscussions.com. We are also on social media on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So please join us in one of those various locations and join in the conversation. So today we're talking about being vulnerable first and often, which is a direct quote that I took from you, Phil, in another podcast, because we have been getting some feedback from some listeners that they like that we're just being real and honest in these podcasts about what happens in our own personal lives and what happens in the veterinary practice, and not trying to put a nice polished gloss and shine on it. So vulnerability, being in a business, regardless if you're a veterinary hospital or any business, any place that you work, vulnerability is a part of it. So I'm going to open up the floor today for that discussion.
I'd love to open with a study that's out there and some data that's interesting. So there was a study that was done. It was done in medical school students, and so they were on their surgical rotation. And on their surgical rotation, the attending surgeon each of these groups had a script that they followed for the rotation. One surgeon had a script that surgeon was encouraging and kind, verbatim, and the other surgeon had a script where that person was mildly rude and discouraging. That's it. Those were the differences. Go through the rotation. A staged medical error occurs during the rotation. Encouraging and kind attending surgeon, 82% of those medical students reported that error. Mildly rude and discouraging, not throwing instruments, publicly berating, dropping the F-bomb, any of those types of mildly rude and discouraging, 30%. So wow. This is the stuff. And so, if we think about that, if we think in the last time we were together, Jenny talked about, being in a leadership role and talking about mistakes, being open about mistakes, and knowing that we've all been in those situations, or those workplace situations, or situations in general, where we didn't feel comfortable bringing up, that we may have made an error. And that's the crux of, really of psychological safety and growth mindset, and, the impact of civility in medicine. And this is where I just, genuinely find this so fascinating, is that these things, when we talk about well-being and we talk about psychological safety, is that these things are not siloed, is that this has real world implications on the practice of, we were talking about it's really in everything, but really in veterinary medicine, the impact that we have. And it also then trickles down into job satisfaction, effective communication. How well do I feel supported? Reward and recognition, these types of things. It's pervasive in all of that. And it can really start with the vulnerability of the leader. And to me, that's just, there's just, it's just so impactful. And I really get excited and nerd out talking about this. But with that, I guess we can, what do you think, Kelly? We can talk about some experiences we've had. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you're right. I think there's this mythology in our, at least American culture. I can't speak for other ones because I wasn't raised in it, but probably there too, is that leaders are invincible and that we aren't vulnerable, and we should be the superheroes with the really sparkly cape or whatever suits your fancy about saving the day, and we're invincible. And it's a myth that sometimes leaders embrace and act that way, when really they're just making shit up and pulling it out of, I'll say, thin air, because this is a family channel. But
you just said shit.
Oh.
But I'm not going to say ass.
No, you're right. So, I mean, all of us right now, we lead companies, we lead things, right? We also lead ourselves and we laugh a lot, but
Oh, look, we lost Phil.
we did. Phil's
I'm
gone.
back. I'm back. I'm back. I got a little verklempt. I'm good.
It's that being, if you don't set the tone as a leader, I mean, Jenny, you talk about this. David, you talk about this. Bill, you talk about this, that we're the ones that allow people to be them, or we create a space where they create work personas. I've heard that a couple of times this week. It's kind of weird out of different people's mouths. Like, I'll put on my work persona today. I'll talk to you later. The real me will be back. I'm like, what's that?
It is, I think it is funny that we kind of have talked about this before, that if you are not actively working on your culture, a culture is building. So if you are not, as a leader, leading the way with, how you act, your personality, then someone else is. And it's usually the loudest, most negative person. We've talked on this show before about the fact that our brains are hardwired to focus on the negative. So if you have a lead tech who comes in and is not just mildly rude, right, like in the study, but is downright nasty, that's setting the tone for the day. That is setting, if they are not civil, then that gives permission to everybody else to not be civil if you as the leader are just allowing that to happen. So you can't be passive. Yes, leaders don't know everything, but you can't be passive. You have to come in and encourage conversation, encourage communication, encourage people to talk things out in a respectful manner. Encourage, I come over, I remember I've talked about my previous employment before. It was a toxic environment. We did have not just mildly rude things thrown at you, cussed out. It was great. And I remember I laugh a lot. I joke around a lot. It's my personality. I find joy in all of life, and it's just the way that I am. And for some people, it's too much. That's fine. I remember one time walking into work over there, and I came in, and I can't remember if I just heard a joke. It was a stupid joke, but I came in, I said it, I made a couple people laugh, and my boss from across the room said, "This is too much of a party atmosphere," and threw something. You think that didn't set the tone for the rest of the day? No more laughing, no more joking around. So you bet your butt that before I come upstairs to my office, I have my little cat and dog mug. I have my matcha tea latte in here, which tastes like dirt. And the rest of my team makes fun of, because I don't drink coffee. So the rest of my team makes fun of me because I walk around with this thing that's like green, and they're like, "Oh, are you drinking your dirt cocktail today?" Yes, I am. We joke around, we laugh. I see how everybody's doing. One of my team members just got back from a small vacation with her mom. How was your time with your mom? That's setting the tone for the day. That's saying, "Hey, I care about you. I care about you. I want to hear how you're doing." And that is encouraging them to be vulnerable to a certain extent. We've had team members go through divorces. We've had team members who have lost people they've care about. I've lost people that I care about. We've held each other when we're all crying. It's okay. When I was diagnosed with depression when I was 21 years old. I had a relapse when I turned 40. I was really kind of missing from this practice for 2 years. I sat down with my team and I said, "Hey guys, I haven't been here. I know this is why. Um, I've just been going through the motions, but I'm getting medicated, I'm getting help, I'm seeing a therapist, da 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 da." And in talking about that, other team members said, "Maybe I should talk to my doctor. I'm not feeling, I'm feeling these things too." And so I had one of my team members come up and she said, "I think you might have saved my life." And all it was because we were open. We always feel so alone in every aspect. You feel like you are the only person going through these struggles. But when you start talking about it, you start hearing, "Oh, well, when I went through that," or, "Oh, my Nana went through that," or whatever. But you're not alone. But you have to start by being vulnerable and inviting vulnerability. And Phil, you said it in the last one. I love Brene Brown. I've read a lot of her books, and she talks about the fact that vulnerability is courage. But it's hard. And I think here's my question to the guys in the group. We don't raise our men that way. We do not raise our men that way. We raise our men to be strong. Don't let people know when you're freaking out. Don't ever, you can't look like you lose control, unless it's in a violent manner, and then it's expected because you're a man. How do you handle that being vulnerable? Like, we're mostly women, right? So like I have tissues in here. I have women crying in here on a regular basis, and that's okay because we're women. It's expected of us. How do you handle it as men that you're really not supposed to be vulnerable?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. I mean, I drank a lot and ended up in treatment. Is
Not a
what
healthy way of
happened.
managing it.
Not a healthy way. And I mean that I'm not, not minimizing, but I didn't have any tools. And to your point is that, as a male growing up is that, and this too was something that, I got from Brene Brown, and she went up and she tells the story about a man that came up with his wife and daughters. And he said, you don't talk about what we go through as men. And basically saying that the only accepted emotion that we can show is anger. And when I heard that, I was like, that really and I was on my journey of recovery, and just that really hit, understanding that. And so very much like Yoda, I mean, I had to unlearn what I've learned, is just knowing that those things when they come up is, where what almost instantly was redirected into a stress, fight or flight response, is like getting curious about it and saying, what is it? Where am I going with this? And it was just, and for me, most of the time it was me misinterpreting what someone said. And it's like, oh, they said this thing, so it must be about me, and it must be this. And then because I feel this way about me, and then I'm that, then it's like, oh my goodness, now everybody's going to know, these things without me even being conscious of it. This is doing these things going on in the background. But what I'll say is that, it's funny is I joke, I joke with my wife. I'm like, I don't know what happened after I turned 40, but like the wrong Subaru commercial, and I'll start crying. Like I mean, I'll start tearing up, like, but
Those
just
Hallmark
life
commercials
experience,
get you every
right?
time.
They get every time, every damn time. I just got to do the white coats, do the address for the UF white coat ceremony, and I'm going to thank them, and I'm looking out at the students, and then remembering that I was there 20 years ago in a fundamentally different place, but I'm looking at them, I'm going to thank them. I almost didn't get through it. Like I stuck, like I'm like, I had to like step back, but just meaning like saying, what's the like, why can't I feel like that? Like, why can't I show love or show emotion? And it's like, because it bucks against something, and like that I'm not, keeping some ideal of what someone else thinks that, I'm supposed to be as a man. But a lot of that comes with being okay with who you are, which is that's some tough work.
Yeah.
It is work.
And I ain't all there
Indeed.
yet.
Work in
David.
progress, as we like to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to try and break the cycle, I think my boys are growing up very emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Not me. That's Susan's great work. I just try and reinforce it, but to break that cycle, because that we don't show emotion. We are not vulnerable. We must be perfect. We must not be seen making mistakes, and can weather the storm through anything, can be the rock for everyone and anyone without taking care of our male selves first. And that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And to try and break that cycle, and that's my goal. So far, knock on wood, the boys are doing well, but they're still learning, as we all are. But,
Well,
yeah, I think
I
to
think
be vulnerable, I agree, it takes a lot of courage, because you got to dig
Yeah.
deep to allow that to happen when you've been programmed otherwise through family and how we grew up and what our experiences are. It's not easy.
Yeah.
it is funny because not funny, but I came back. All my my books I listen to. I'll read my smut books, no problem, but I cannot read a Brene Brown book. I have to listen to it. So I come back and I have all these conversations with my husband, and I'm like, babe, do you think that you were raised in a way that you are not allowed to like let people know when you're losing your shit? And he goes, oh yeah. And I said, you can be honest with me. He goes, you don't want to know all the time that I am
Yeah.
so close to, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. And I'm like, I'd be okay with it. But it's how he was trained. And I
Yeah.
do think, to your point, David, it is up to us to raise that next generation. Our son is a lot more, I think, and I think their generation is just better about things.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
oh my gosh, so my oldest was hospitalized for a month for suicidal tendencies before we could get into a outpatient treatment. There was like a month waiting period because, of course, everything was overwhelmed after COVID. And I'm like, well, I guess we're going to send her back to school. I mean, she can't sit at home and just stew on it. But then I'm like, oh my God, if she goes back to school, like all the kids are going to, oh, you're crazy. Oh, they're going to come and take you away. They don't. They are so much nicer than our generation was. Like, they're like, oh, well, I'm on this antidepressant medication. Or, oh, I mean, they were just so open about their own. They are so much more vulnerable, this younger generation. And it's interesting because I think it drives some of our older business owners crazy because they're like, all of these Gen Zs are always talking about their feelings and they want to have fun, and they are always crying, and it's so irritating. Why can't they just come to work and do their job? And it's like, it's actually kind of beautiful that
Yeah.
that they're so much healthier because they are not holding that all in.
I've noticed, Jenny,
Yeah.
it's about 10 to 15 years ahead of where we were growing up. And it's because of, I think it's due to social media. So whenever your kid gets on a phone, gets on social media, because social media, people are completely vulnerable. They're doing the get ready, because I have a girl, they're doing the get ready morning routine and talking about their feelings while getting ready, just like you sit there and talk to a girlfriend. The conversations they're having about relationships on all levels, mental, emotional, physical, starts way earlier. It's what we did in the 20s, right? Our 20s and our 30s. And so I agree with you. They're much more vulnerable. And sometimes I just sit in awe and go, where did that come from? Because
Not from us.
yeah,
We're still hiding.
we're still like struggling with some of this. And you do see it, like I see it in my daughter's friends' parents is where it shows up. It's like that older generation that hits the wall of Generation Z, and they're like, Mom, this set of parents is wigging out because they won't let their daughter go do this. And I'm like, yeah, babe, because they're not comfortable with whatever this is, right? They're not comfortable being vulnerable and having a discussion with their kid. But you know me, if you ask me something, we're going to discuss it. So be careful of the question you ask, because you may not like the answer, because it may make you uncomfortable, right? So I have hope for our younger generation in that sense. Other ways?
Yeah. Work ethic.
But like, that's what's interesting is, I work with a whole group of, millennials and Gen Zs, and they work their asses off, and it's just where I'm going with this. What's interesting is that we do try to lump everybody into a generation, but it's like, we all do share these human emotions that you can see the commonality in all of us. And I want to also just be a proponent for, the baby boomer generation and the ones that I know that will say, I don't understand it, but I understand the need for it. Is like, I didn't go through it, but I'm open to hearing, why that may not be the best thing. And I just like that, to me, is beautiful. So there are, a number of veterinarians that I just think so highly of in the state of Florida, that have said, almost verbatim that. And I'm just like, oh, I mean, that's all any of us can ask is, whatever it is, like, I may not be able to understand it because I haven't walked through it, but as a human being, I can say, I know that it's important to you, and I'm willing to, I want to listen and learn more about it. So that's the that's the beautiful part too, is that
I think
it's
that's
not,
step
we're
one
not
of
all
being
pigeonholed into. Yeah.
Well said.
step one in
Yeah.
being vulnerable is listening and
Yeah.
being open to understand, not just listening to
Yeah.
respond, but listening to really hear and really like
Oh,
take that in. And it's hard for a lot of people.
absolutely.
What?
Doesn't
It's
come
not about you
naturally.
all the time. You have to listen to somebody else. Come on.
No, I listen to just me
Me,
right here.
me, turn the M upside down and become we. That's what we do.
Oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We should do a whole nother talk on another time about generations because I get so sick of it hearing about it. I would love the next time I'm on to just be like, stop it.
No, it's good because there's a lot of change and growth, but this is one of the stepping stones. So have somebody wrap this up today about vulnerability. Who wants to take a stab at it?
I'll do it. That's fine. I will say this, that so my husband and I own the practice together, and he was raised as, very much, he played football, he, threw shot put, all the things,
Yep.
right? But the first thing that he does when we hire a vet is he says, whatever mistake you're going to make, and you will make them, I've done it. I have done it. I have, we've lost patients because of bad decisions that I made. We've hired the wrong people. Whatever mistake you're going to do, I have done it and it's okay. So talk to me. And the fact that he is willing to say that has led to some of the best, my doctors are like, this was a great place to learn. This has been a great mentorship because I knew from day one that it was okay to make mistakes. I knew from day one that I wasn't going to get yelled at. I wasn't going to get thrown under the bus, that my boss, my team, my clinic had me. And I think that that's the big thing to remember, that no matter how uncomfortable it is to be vulnerable and to be open and to be honest, no matter how uncomfortable it is, it leads to so many rewards that are 100% worth it. So get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Well said.
Thank you.
There you go.
There you go. Yep. Nope. I love ending on a story. So thank you, Jenny. So until next time, we'll wish you all adieu and we'll catch up with you later.
The double princess.
Oh, it's too